about you guys, but I sometimes have this bad habit of daydreaming. And in these daydreams, I'm often the hero of some situation. Like when I was younger, I would imagine that the lead in the play was sick and I was called in at the last minute to play the part, and I was somehow amazing. Or maybe you're sporty and you imagine that you're called in to take the final shot of the soccer game and you score and sweet victory is yours and the crowd goes wild. See, for me, these daydreams often focus on these clutch moments when everything is down to the wire and what I do is going to make all the difference in the world. And I think faith can be like that too. See, we imagine ourselves in these crucial moments doing the thing that Jesus would do, standing for the oppressed, delivering an eloquent speech, being willing to sacrifice everything in the name of Jesus. But here's a bit of hard truth to swallow. I was never going to be the lead in the play because I never put the work into trying to get a role in the play. I didn't run lines, I didn't memorize monologues or dance steps, I didn't work at it. And I was never going to score the game-winning goal because I played defense. And I was a pretty lazy athlete, if I'm being honest. I did the bare minimum to not get yelled at in practice. It's like hoping you can stick your tongue out the side of your mouth and expect to shoot like Michael Jordan during the big game. And I think we do the same thing when it comes to Jesus. Dallas Willard puts it this way: a baseball player who expects to excel in the game without adequate exercise of his body is no more ridiculous than the Christian who hopes to be able to act in the manner of Christ when put to the test without the appropriate exercise in godly living. We must act like Jesus acted in the small moments, in the in-between moments of his great moments in order to be like him. And sometimes when we read through the Bible, it can be easy to miss the in-between moments. But I think we get a little glimpse into this in Luke chapter 5. See, there's this tiny little verse smashed in between some healings and some miracles. See, in the section before, Jesus healed a leper, and then in the section after, he's healing a paralytic. And so these are big public healings. These are Jesus's clutch moments. And then right in between, we read this in Luke 5:16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Now, normally I don't really talk about grammar with you guys because most people hate it. I don't, but hey, I get it. But I want to talk for a second here about the grammar in this sentence because it's important. He often withdrew was written in such a way as to imply a continual practice. You could also say it like he was regularly withdrawing and praying. And why does that matter? It matters because Jesus, who was in fact God, who was perfect in every way, who never made a wrong choice or did a wrong thing, was often withdrawing to pray. Even Jesus himself needed to withdraw to be filled up by his Father. You know, I've heard it said this way before. We all have this cup. And we go out in the world and we love on other people. We're pouring into them from our cup. And so I tip it this way and then I tip it over there. And then I hope that maybe you'll tip a little bit back into my cup. But we're all working with a limited amount of water here. And so I tip my cup around and some people might fill it back a little bit. But more often than not, that cup is going to empty out. And there's only one place to really get it filled to the brim. There's only one place where the water never stops running. As Jesus withdrew to pray, he was connecting with God the Father. He was holding up his cup in order to be filled back up. He was receiving encouragement and love and wisdom. He was listening to the Father and getting direction from him. He was being filled to the brim with the love of God, with enough to spill over. And remember that bit of grammar from earlier? This was a rhythm for him. Go and pour out, come back to be filled. Go and pour out, return to be filled. You know, as much as I want to, as much as I wish I could, I don't have enough love to overflow your cup. There aren't enough people in the world to fill you up the way God the Father can. This is what Jesus knew, and this is what Jesus modeled. You know, being the church doesn't just mean doing stuff. All of these things we've already talked about: setting an example, serving, being a light in the world around you, bringing what you have to the table. This is all active stuff that requires a full cup. You're pouring your cup out into the church and into the world around you. But soon enough, that cup is going to run empty. And that is why you need to know how to return to God to be filled again. And this is what we see Jesus doing in Luke 5. It's this short little verse that gives us so much context into the life of Jesus. He was able to do what he did in the clutch moments because he kept withdrawing to get his cup filled by the Father. Even though he was perfect, he still needed those moments to withdraw. So how much more so do we? This series is called You Are the Church, and it's a lot about what you do as the church. But tonight we want to focus on who you're becoming. Because yes, you are the church now, but that doesn't mean that you don't grow. As you step into your roles and responsibilities in the church, you can't neglect your own spiritual growth. You know that Willard quote that we read earlier, he talks about proper exercises and godly living. That's what we're talking about here. It means growing in your faith. You need to go to worship and to your D group, and you need to spend time reading the Bible for yourself. You need to withdraw to your own lonely places to pray. This is where you'll get your cup filled up. No one can fill your cup like God can. It's tempting to think that you can be filled up by your friends, by your Christian community, by your D group leaders, and by the stuff that you do. But nothing can fill you up like the love of God. You are the church, and it's up to you to allow God to fill your cup so that you can make the contribution He has in store for you.